This is the Sick'em Podcast, powered by Rogue Media Network. The Sick'em Podcast is a production of Baylor Athletics. Now, here are your hosts, Katie Smith and the voice of the Bears, John Morris.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Sick'em Podcast, powered by Rogue Media Network. Glad you're with us this week. John Morris, Katie Smith, and it is spring break on the Baylor campus. And like I said last week, you know what that means.
You threw me a softball last week, and I was like, the weather's getting better.
No,
All of a sudden, it's March Madness.
Yeah, March Madness. There you go.
But it's more
That's
appropriate
the right
for this
answer.
podcast.
Yes. But March Madness, men's and women's basketball in Kansas City for the Big 12 tournaments up there. That's men's and women's. So we're recording this before we leave for Kansas City to get our next guest on. Our guest today, Caitlin Bickle from Baylor Women's Basketball. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you being with us.
Thanks.
Spring break is different, means something different to you than it does the normal student population, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely different. Don't really consider it a break.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of ramp-up time when you get to spring break, right?
Opposite, Instead
That's
of relaxing, you get a little bit more intense.
Right,
Yeah, that's
right.
fair. I bet your classmates are telling you all about their big spring break
So
plans.
excited.
And you're like, excuse me.
I'm like, I'm in Kansas.
Interesting. What is spring
What would
break?
that be like?
I love it.
Well, you'll have plenty of time after basketball's over to enjoy spring break. Regular season ended on Saturday. I told you this walking down the hall. I hate it so bad for you. You were a senior, recognized as a senior. You're in grad school. But men's and women's dropped senior day games on Saturday. That was a real bummer, and I feel worse for you, for the seniors.
Yeah. It's not easy. It's still hurting a little bit, just a little bit.
That's tough.
That's totally fair. Talk a little bit about, a lot of buildup probably of emotions last game to play in the Farrell Center. What was that kind of like for you?
Obviously surreal. I mean, I had been thinking about it for a little bit leading up to it. It's just weird.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird that I'm never going to, obviously we have practice leading up, and then after a Big 12 tournament we'll still practice before March Madness, but it's just weird, like it's not like I'm going to be running out of the tunnel anymore and doing all that stuff, but definitely didn't take anything for granted. I enjoyed it. It was fun.
That's awesome.
That's great. I mean, 5 years for you here, and it's not over yet. Whatever we talk about today, it's not over.
It's not over.
You've got all of March to play.
Right.
But 5 years here, part of a national championship, 4 Big 12 championships, really 6 if you count 2 tournament titles as well. I mean, that's a lot of winning in your time here at Baylor.
Yeah, it's been fun. I love winning. You guys know me. I love winning. But definitely not over. So hoping we can add on to that resume there.
Yeah. So many good experiences at Baylor. Let's throw it way back, right? So huge high school recruit. So many different schools interested in you. Why was Baylor even on your radar?
Oh God. Well, I wanted to win. I mean, that was number one. I'm going to be honest. Like, that was number one for sure. I think also just obviously being from Arizona, I didn't want to stay in Arizona. I wanted to leave, but I was very close to my family. I wanted to still be able to see them. I wanted it to be somewhat easy, obviously, for them to make it out here, which they have been able to. A lot of like weekend games and things like that, which was big for me. And then I don't know, I just love the school. I was really big on, I can be very specific about things. If you ever ask any of my teammates, I'm very scheduled. I'm very set in my ways a little bit. So like just the campus was really nice. I liked having a little bit smaller of a community. I obviously grew up in a small town. Like everything, it kind of mirrored where I lived in Arizona a little bit, but still had so many differences. Obviously not being the same state, not being the same area. Just felt like home away from home.
Yeah.
Tell us about Cave Creek, Arizona. What's that like? What's it near?
Everyone knows Scottsdale.
Okay.
It's like 15, 20 minutes from Scottsdale.
Gotcha.
Like you just go on a straight line road all the way down and you're going through all that.
Beautiful part of the world.
It is beautiful.
Beautiful. I think for sure, like, I don't think people ever notice this, but like just the mountains like are so gorgeous. Like every time I go home, I'm always hiking. I'm always like out and about. Like it's just so beautiful. We live right on a little kind of like golf course. Like my parents had just moved before I left, and we literally live right next to Black Mountain, which Arizona's very like famous for, like very, very beautiful. So I miss it a little bit. But,
that's nice.
Texas is pretty too.
It is pretty. Yeah, we don't quite have those mountains, but so you a lot of different schools, right? Kind of all over the country were your final few. Louisville, Michigan, California. So what was it about when you were on Baylor's campus? Like you mentioned that you just liked the structure of it. You liked a lot of different things, but were there people here? Like what made it where you wanted to turn those other schools down?
Yeah, I definitely think I had some good relationships with some other coaches, obviously, but I think it was just felt so easy. Like I always say, one of my biggest offers, like when I was super young, like I think it was like my freshman year after we got done with the tournament, Louisville had offered me. And it was one of those like, oh, wow moments, you know, like you're kind of like, ooh, okay, what's happening?
Wow. Ooh, I'm pretty good at this.
And I hadn't had that crazy feeling in me just because it was the first one, but I hadn't had that crazy feeling again of like the, oh, wow moment until Baylor had offered, like until I got the call. My coach was like, hey, so like they're doing this. And I was like, okay. And I was like right there and I was like, I think this might be the one, you know, like still like it was just kind of that, oh, wow factor. Like there were so many things that you like about different places and you build great relationships. But it was just like that kind of that very moment where you were like, yeah, okay. Like, this might be it, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I feel like a lot of our student athletes talk about this, like, feeling, right? Of like, oh, I just knew it. But the oh, wow factor, I really like it put that way.
And then you come in as a freshman, you're part of a national championship team. You're thinking, oh, man, I made the right choice, right? What was that? Thinking way back. Caitlin, you're so old. Way back to your freshman year.
You're so old.
Everyone says that to me.
What was that like your freshman year?
So crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, just so everything. Obviously, it's not like I feel like I could have gone to a lot of other places you could play right away. You know, that you see that so much right now, so many transfers. And people transfer for different reasons. You know, people want different things. But it was just so much fun. You know, like I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like I think about it all the time. I'm like, well, what if I went there? And what if maybe I should have done that or done and I'm like sitting there and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I keep thinking, I'm like, no, I've got a national championship.
That's
right. I was like, not a lot of people can say that, you know, and I think whatever my role was on the team at that time, you know, I took it very seriously, you know, like I really, really wanted to be a part of it, whether it was like Coach Kim having wanted me to push our two All-Americans around, like Kalani Brown and Lauren Cox were like 6'6", 6'7", you know, and I'm like 6'1", and I'm just like trying to shove them and like just trying to do whatever she wanted me to do so that we were ready to play. Wow. You know, that was so many people's roles on the team that people don't always see that stuff. You know, like it's so much fun to be able to see that because all of a sudden they go in game and you're like, this looks a little easy for them. You know, like it's easy for them at that point. So it was a blast. I mean, I love it.
That's a big part of it. I mean, know your role, fill your role. Yeah. And interesting to have watched your career and how your role has changed, really changed dramatically over the 5 years.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a big change gradually as each year went on, for sure.
I mean, to this year, you're being, you know, one of the key players to this year's team. But you've just grown and done what the coaches have asked you to do and matured, I think is accurate through your time here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I feel like I always hear you described as coachable. Have you always been that way? Is it you and Nikki's relationship makes it where you're so coachable? Like, where's that kind of come from?
Yeah, I'd say always been coachable. I've had very different coaches.
Okay.
A lot of them were pretty similar. Like, I would say Coach Nikki's like the very different coach that I've had. In some senses, like I've just always been very high IQ, which makes things very easy for me basketball-wise. You know, like I can sit there and like go up. Like I tell people all the time, I watch the games 2 or 3 times, whether we lose or win after. Yeah. Like usually when we're on an away game, like I spend my time on the ride back or flight back watching the game on my phone and just like, okay, like this, that, like maybe we could do this. Like, and I love that stuff. Like, so I think for me, it was so easy to be coached by them, especially with the confidence they gave in me. Like it was like a fresh start. You know, it's not like they came in and were like, well, let's like watch all their film. Like, of course they probably like saw what personnel did and things like that, but it was a very different system before, you know, they still had a lot of new players, a lot of things that they had a system already that they wanted to work under. And I think for me, their system and kind of the way they coach just works so well for me. You know, like it makes me more confident and makes me really, really want to be there every day and play for them. So I think that just kind of helped, you know, mindset-wise kind of coming into last year and this year.
Yeah.
That really speaks to, I mean, you had a decision to make. There was a coaching change in the middle of your time here at Baylor. What things did you go through in your mind about potentially leaving? I think you said last week you thought about transferring.
Yeah.
And then your first meeting with Coach Collin and that staff, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I think obviously right away, and it was before Coach Nick even got hired, you know, that I was like, oh my God, panic mode.
Yeah.
You're like, I need to get out of
Right.
here. You know, like you really don't know what to do in that moment because you've never had to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like I'm a super, like when I committed, like I obviously tore my ACL and meniscus my senior year of high school, and Coach Kim was obviously very respectful and was like, we're not going to take your scholarship away. Like you still come here. And I was like, I was really big on the loyalty aspect and I loved that. And I just kind of sat there whenever she left. And I think a lot of people were kind of like, oh, okay, like, what are we supposed to do? You know, like, you knew that there were certain people that were going to transfer no matter what. And then you had people like me, Queen, and Liz, where for them especially, it was their last year. Like, they weren't going to come back. They didn't have a reason to come back, you know, being drafted so high and being so successful as they were. And I think kind of in that process, my dad was like, no, you should just, like, you know, stick it out. Like, especially just going in a grad program, there's not a lot. That, you know, it's not like you're just going into an open undergrad.
Right.
Like, it's very, like, you're getting a little bit more specific. You've already applied. Like, I was already in the application process. I was taking my exams to get into school, you know, just things like that. And then we met, like, with Coach Nikki, and we were kind of all just like, let's just stick it out, you know, like, let's stick it out. And it was funny because we kept saying that. And, you know, gradually people kept going into the transfer portal.
Let's just stick it out. Okay.
No,
for
people,
her.
you know.
Right.
And at a certain point, I'm not going to lie because I've never said this to anyone, but our group chat last year was literally called Survivors.
Oh, really?
I'm not kidding you. And it just
love it.
stuck because it was just funny. Like,
Right.
because we had like 4 people at one point.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like we're like, we really don't know what's going to happen. You know, like, and we're just like, let's stick through it. You know, like we like this coach. We like, I loved the first impression of her. Just so open, so sweet, so honest. Like, I loved that. And I was like, yeah, let's do this thing.
Yeah.
You know, like
That's
I was
great.
like, she was just so open and passionate about things that I was like, almost like the, like kind of fire. Like you could tell she wanted to come in and do something like that. She wasn't intimidated. Like she was ready. Like she just felt confident. Like she was like, we can do what we need to do with what we have. Even if we had 5 or 6. Like I remember we had recruited Kendra. We had like 6 players.
Yeah.
And we were recruiting Kendra, and then we were just hoping to get like a walk-on. Like,
Yeah.
so
Wow.
that we could have 10. You
Yeah,
know, like,
yeah.
and not a lot of teams are like that. Like, not saying every team in the country is going to play 9, 10, 11, 12
No,
people, but you at least have those numbers in case
Sure.
anything were to
Option.
happen.
Yeah.
So I think that was just incredible, like what we were capable of doing, even with that, out of
Yeah.
all odds, you know.
Yeah. So you talk about those times with the smaller roster size. How much do you feel like that grew y'all as a team? Just like the single unit that y'all had of so few additional players. Like, here's what we
Yeah.
have. Here's what we're working with.
I think I think so many people, like, it was very mature. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like, like, I just felt like we were so close knit.
Yeah.
You have 7 or 8 players and you're around each other 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, okay, we have a game. We're literally all in treatment at the exact same time the next day. You know, like, just like looking at each other like, hey, we're good. You're good. You're good. We're good. You know, kind of like, we're good.
Take
and,
roll
like,
every
going
day.
in practice the next day. Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things. Obviously, it was Coach Kim's first year leaving, so everyone, you know, thought, oh, failure is coming your way. You know, like, it's just bound to happen. And I think for us, that was like, well, we want to prove you wrong. You know,
Yeah.
like, we want to be that team. Like, you never want to be a drop-off team.
Yeah.
You know, you never want to be that. And I think it's so hard because it's such, people don't get, like, it's such a rebuilding.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like she had Moon Urson staying and Trinity Oliver staying that could have given you more experience and just more numbers that all
Right.
knew who were playing with each other.
Yeah.
Just people like that. And I think people don't realize how difficult that is. You know, like, it's so hard to be able to do that and bring people together under a completely different system. 5 of the players had played under a completely different system.
Yeah.
You know, you had 1 or 2 transfers. Like, K-Mac hadn't played the year before, so she didn't really get to gel with us. Like, that was her year of gel. You know, like, it's just different things like that all played into factor that kind of just made us want it more. You know, like, okay, like, we can do this.
I've always thought you're mature, but was that a maturing process going through that, and you being really one of the rocks, one of the survivors, so to speak, you know, one that stuck around?
Yeah, I think that definitely made me almost kind of have to be a little bit more of a calming factor. You know, I was always very, not like sidelined, but very like Lauren Cox and Moon are some of like my best friends. Yeah. You know, and we were just kind of like the quiet one, like we were just hanging out, like always kind of just there, like getting into some things, but never like super, you know, like Dee Dee Richards, you know, like you love Dee Dee, you're always going to laugh with Dee Dee, like, you know, she's that kind of wow factor. And like, it was always kind of staying in the sideline, and you almost had to change that a little bit, you know, to just be like, hey, like, you know, I think the biggest thing for me was like Queen and Liz staying. Like, that was so big for me, because it's like we all came in together. We had 2 other people that didn't end up staying, like that it didn't work out. And we were just like, no, like, we can do this. Like, let's go out together. And that whole year for us was just like almost going down like a memory lane. Yeah. You know, like every time we went somewhere, we were like, it's our last game together. It's our last game, you know, like, so I think that was extremely important for us.
Tuned into the Sikkim podcast. Caitlin Bickle, our guest, Baylor senior, Baylor women's basketball, actually in grad school. She has her undergrad degree. Hey, I've had the privilege of calling games, telling stories about Baylor athletics for a long time. Storytelling is an art, and there's a network in town doing just that. Rogue Media Network has produced over 80 original podcasts and shows, ranging from comedy, true crime, business, and sports. If there's a story to tell, Rogue Media Network is telling it. You can find this podcast and all the other great Rogue Media Network shows on Spotify, on Apple, on YouTube, or anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Caitlin, hearing all these incredible things about your career here, are there certain, again, like we said, we have a whole month left, so don't tap out early, but are there certain games that come to mind, like now that you look back, that it's like, yes, that was such a highlight for me already?
Oh gosh, you mean like whole career or
whole
past
career?
Year, 2 years? Oh gosh,
there's no rules.
There's been a lot.
There have been a lot. There's a lot of good memories there.
Yeah. Oh man, that's tough.
While you think, I said this Saturday, you know, last conference games in the Farrell Center.
Yeah.
You know, we'll open the year next year in the Farrell Center and then move to the Foster Pavilion. But I said, think about all the winning that's taken place in this building and all the confetti that's been dropped in the Farrell Center. I mean, Caitlin, there's been a ton of that.
A lot. I think all those memories are great. I mean, all those wins, man. I think especially the past 2 years having an even bigger role in it meant a lot more. Like last year we started at 0-2 and came back and were able to win it, you know. Yeah. Obviously this year it's the first time we haven't had it in a long time, but I think even for us, I mean, the first thing, obviously one of the first things she said after the game was like, hey, not going to celebrate tonight, but we can next weekend. If we, you know, move past this lock-in, we're very capable of, you know, being that team that can do that. So I think for me, that's a big thing for me just this week, like staying on track, making sure I do everything that, you know, I need to do in order for us to be capable of that. Because I know everyone else is going to handle what they need to handle. I think for me, it's just making sure I'm calm, cool, collected, like that solid person if we're ever getting razzled, you know, just. So I think that's going to be a big thing for me. I would love to do that again. One more time, especially since we didn't get it this year.
Yeah. Well, and leaving the Farrell Center, I mean, hate that you don't have any more games in the Farrell Center, but y'all have been so good on the road this year. It's amazing.
Yeah, y'all really
4-0 against top 25 teams on the road. That went over Texas in Austin Monday last week. I mean, can you almost – I don't know what – I'm not going to ask you what that is. Well, I am. What is that on the road? How have y'all been so successful?
Just, I think, less distractions. Yeah. You know, I think it's like you get there, you go to dinner, you do film, you wake up the next day, you do breakfast, you do film, you go to shoot around, you do film, you have pregame meal.
You do film.
You do film before the game, and then you go back out there. You know, like we do film during warm-up. Like, you know, it's so different. You don't have distractions. It's not like we have a ton of people traveling with us, like maybe one or two at away games, if that. So I think that might be part of it. And it's also like I love that Coach Nikki said this last week, but it's like us against the world on the road.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't have anyone backing you. You don't have like your parents in the crowd. Like it's literally, it's us and it's no one else. You know, like it's us and it's 8, 10, 9,000 other people that are cheering for the other team. Yeah. You know, and I think we're just so much more locked in on road games.
That's great. Well, these won't be road games this week or, you know, when you go to the NCAAs, but they're not at home. I mean, they're neutral site games. Yeah. So maybe that winning experience away from home, maybe that'll pay off for you.
For sure. Yeah. I think we'll definitely be locked in, and we got it. Got to be confident. You know, you got to be confident.
Are there certain conference opponents that you just loved playing at throughout the past few years? Like, this is my favorite Big 12 school to play at just because of the environment or the fans or...
You know, actually, I think in the past couple years especially, I think there's been some... Like, when we used to go and play, like, you didn't really get crowds at certain places.
Yeah.
You know, like, they were still so young or, like, you know, you see K-State and Kansas, like they have phenomenal crowds now.
Wow,
you know what I'm saying? And cool. I can tell you that they didn't have that my freshman, sophomore year. Wow. Like they didn't have that.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool to see the growth. Years. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like I really enjoyed playing at Kansas this year.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. I thought the energy was great. I thought it was a great game.
And you won there, by the way.
Fantastic. Exactly. I thought that was our best game of the year.
Was it?
Cool.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Just because it was such a hard week, you know, like first week you're kind of, you know, it's just so different.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's so many, like Iowa State's great.
Yeah.
Like in my opinion, people are always like, oh, well, does it bother you to play there? And I'm like, no. I'm like, we played solid there to the point where it's like the crowd never really bothered you.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Like I was like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Texas was phenomenal this year.
Yeah.
There was one point I couldn't even hear myself think. I was sitting on the bench and I was like,
packed.
Can anyone else hear? Because I can't hear. I'm like looking at our bench like, okay, let's get a stop. You know, like we can do it.
Now, hang on, Katie. Part of that is the crowd, yes.
Sure.
But part of it is in that new Moody Center, they play the music there so loud.
The arena's
beautiful. It is nice.
Beautiful.
Yes, it is very nice.
Interesting.
But
they just crank it all the way up?
They just crank it up.
Oh, man.
Because the place was built for basketball, but also for concerts.
Yeah.
So
I
think it's got a really good sound system.
Sound.
Yeah, they were playing some good tunes before the game. I'm not going to lie. They were playing some good tunes. We were jamming.
And you won there. Let's make that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good.
It's cool to hear you talk about those experiences at other schools because I'm sure that you know, you talk to anyone in the Big 12 and it's the environment they're talking about, right, is the Farrell Center. Farrell Center, and you talk about our fans. What is it like having a fan base like Baylor women's basketball has had your whole time here? Because that's not normal. Coming from a volleyball player, that's not normal.
Different. I think for us it's so different because I think we have a lot of older fans for women's basketball, especially compared to men's. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, you hear me talk about atmosphere. There's a lot of students that go to other schools' games compared to what we get. You know, like there's some games where we're like just really, really trying to push them to come. Like I can tell you the amount of times I've been on campus this year to promote a game. And I think especially going over to Pavilion next year for these girls, like it's so important that we get that student crowd, you know, because you always know. And I love our tip-off club. I love our fans. Like, I appreciate them so much. Like, that's why I make sure I go high-five them after every single game because I know, like, you don't have to be here.
Yeah.
You could watch it at home.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, you don't have to be here. But, like, you love Baylor and you love us so much that you're coming to support us whether we win, lose, you know, something happens.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping when they start playing in the Pavilion and things like that especially with how Coach Nikki is, like, she loves students on campus. Mm-hmm. Like, she loves them. Like, she goes to all the other sports, like, trying to, you know, like, promote Baylor. It's not just for her. You know, it's, like, she buys into Baylor so much that it's, like, I'm hoping that they can eventually get that. You know, that they can find that love again for us, whether we're ranked or not ranked, whether whoever is playing next year and how it turns out, like, just finding that. Because it makes such a difference. Like, when I go to other schools and I see, like, their student section completely filled, I'm like, okay. Like they're running in at the hour mark, how they do for the
Right.
men's games.
Right.
And I'm like, dang.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be cool.
That's great.
Like to see that again. So I'm hoping like the pavilion atmosphere can be that way for them.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Nikki and y'all's entire staff they're at everything. Like any Baylor sporting event. So are y'all. All of our women's basketball student athletes just
all the
support
time.
Other student athletes so well, so I love that.
That's very fun. So tournament this week in Kansas City, on to the NCAAs after that. We mentioned you're in grad school and sport management, right?
Yes.
Is your grad degree, and you're about to wrap that up. So you'll be a graduate of Baylor University, 2-degree graduate from Baylor University. That's impressive.
That's
crazy.
very impressive.
I got lucky with the COVID year. I got lucky.
How many people will say that?
I know.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. And you and Jamie were recognized prior to the game on Saturday, and she's finishing up her grad degree also, Jamie Asbury.
She finished it in December, actually.
Oh, she did?
So she's just taking random classes now.
I love it.
She got to finish early, so she's just taking a bunch of random classes now.
That's great.
So what's the dream job that you're hoping to use the sport management degree for?
So after, obviously, I want to play basketball professionally. If that doesn't work out, I've told
something
people this.
tells me it will.
I tell people this all the time, but I'd love to stay at Baylor. Like, I'd love to absolutely work in college athletics at Baylor. Yeah. If that doesn't happen, I want to work in college athletics.
Yeah.
Have a few different places in mind just because of connections and networking and things like that. Whether it's if I work in basketball, I'd love to coach.
Okay, I was going to say your coaching IQ.
Yeah,
you talked about it.
I'd love to coach. If it's in like a different sport, because I obviously am cool with other sports. Love them. Maybe operations, player development, just things like that. I'm really open to a lot of stuff. I've done quite a few different internships and working with people on campus to try to get a feel and be like, oh, am I good in here? Like, what do I need to work on? Like, kind of, just different things. So definitely want to stay in college athletics, though. I love it.
One of those, you worked with our fan engagement group here in athletics.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
Good. I'm actually still I'm a student worker for them currently.
You are?
Yeah,
cool.
It's weird with the
You're
schedule.
Just a little busy.
Yeah. It's weird with the schedule. I'm always like, depending on, when we play, it always happens.
Right.
Every game day that we have at home is like their busiest day.
Sure.
And I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Like, don't put me down.
I'm just looking at them all the time and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, next weekend, for sure. Like,
next weekend I'm in.
But it's really fun. It was so different. I'm one of those, like, when I have something, I'm very, like, full force into it. Like, I hate not giving 110%. So I was like, the first couple weeks, Michaela was my boss, and I was like, so what else do you have for me? What else can I do for you? You know me. I'm just like, I'm like trying to work as quick as possible and be as efficient as possible. Anything that she gave me, and she was like, joking with me, you're being too efficient, and I'm like, but I can do more,
feedback.
Like just joking with me. But it was fun. I think I learned a lot of different stuff, especially on the marketing side.
Yeah.
I was never, because I was a comm major, I was never a huge research this, like a lot of what comm is like, hey, take these kind of different definitions or just what knowledge that you learn in comm and base it off your life.
Yeah.
More life experience. And I'm really good at writing about that. And I think it was different, especially because a lot of it had to do with basketball. Like that I got to look up a lot of different stuff, whether it was social media interactions or different websites that schools use, things like that. And I thought that was really cool to get that experience because I've never done that. You know?
You talk about marketing and how Michaela, her job is specifically for basketball. And so what was it kind of interesting to see how much does go on behind the scenes? Like, was it surprising to you, or did you think all that was happening?
I wouldn't say surprising. I think she's done such a good job because I don't think we've ever had a crazy amount of marketing. And it was cool being able to work under her because she would be like, well, so what do you think here?
Yeah.
You know,
awesome.
like she'd be like, what do you think about this? Or like, what would be a good idea that, especially because I'm on the team, like what would the girls like to do that could also interact with the fans? You know, like me and Jane went dunking or on people around campus. So that I had mentioned that, and like that ended up being a fantastic idea. You know, we got on
really
Big
cool.
Noon, you know, like things like that you don't think about. But it's such a different perspective. Like I was like, well, this, like we used to do this, and this is how it came up. I was like, we used to do this in middle school.
Really?
Just like in your
I'm not
lunchroom?
kidding.
Or?
No, like just kids in my middle school would just go around dunking on kids on campus. Like, I'm not kidding you. And I was like, I think that'd be really fun to do. And she was like, okay. I was like, let's do it. Like, you know, like I was like, me and Jaden can do it. And I was like, it worked out great. I was like, this is, and that was just me, like, just spitting out ideas. You know, like I was like, yeah, we kind of did this because it's such a big thing right now for people to, like, shoot.
Yeah.
And
I mean, all
you know,
the way
just
on
random
college game
stuff.
day, right? Y'all done?
Just random stuff. So I thought that was really cool, like, just kind of seeing that connection of like, oh, it might be really dumb, but it wasn't.
But
you know,
wasn't.
like in my head, I was like, this is probably stupid, but I'm just gonna tell you this.
Wasn't at all. It was great.
It's a great
and
idea.
people loved it. Yeah. Like it was so fun. It was it was fun for us too because we're kind of running around campus like, okay, let's not make anyone mad, but let's have some fun. You know, like we were trying to like stare at everyone like,
who looks like we could dunk on them.
I was
and
like,
wouldn't
who
yell.
would smile? Exactly. I was like, who doesn't look as locked in on their phone right now? You know, like to where, you know, it wouldn't get anyone upset, but it was really fun.
It's really cool. And you're so smart to get that kind of experience, you know, while you're in school, and that'll help you down the road. You know, when you go looking for a job, they say, have you done this? Yeah, I've done that. I've been in fan engagement. Yeah. So that'll work well for you.
Yeah, it was definitely awesome.
Very good.
It's fun.
So 5 years at Baylor. You're going to get this question when your season comes to an end about a month from now. Okay. What has the entire Baylor experience meant to you? Not just basketball, but the entire Baylor experience.
Yeah. It's just home, you know. I don't know. Like, I think I threw so much into Baylor that it was like, it doesn't, like, even when I go home to Arizona, it doesn't feel like home. You know, like, I went home last year. My birthday's May 5th, so it's like at the very end of the year, you're in finals.
My birthday's May 5th. That
is
was
it really?
wild.
Whoa,
oh my gosh,
fantastic.
is it really? That's awesome.
It's a great birthday.
Exactly. I told everyone. I said everyone celebrates my birthday.
Everyone celebrates me.
They may not know they're celebrating my birthday, but they're celebrating my birthday.
I love it.
It's a national holiday.
Exactly. I'm like,
national
they're
holiday.
celebrating it whether they know about it or not.
Just for us. Sorry, continue.
But I think I went home last May. I was like, oh, I finished finals early. Let me go home for my birthday. I don't even have that many friends in Arizona. Okay, I just go to hang out with my parents. I literally spend every day with them. Anytime they get home from work, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are home. Let's do a puzzle. Let's watch Harry Potter. Like I'm like I'm such a loser.
I love it. No.
And I went home and I was supposed to be there the whole month. Like it was the first time I hadn't had a mini-mester class in my 4 years there. And I was sitting there, and I'm in week 2. I've done everything I could do with my parents, you know. Like I think they're just
every puzzle.
I think they're just bored of me, and I'm like, would you guys hate me because I drive home because of my dog? Yeah. I'm like, would you guys hate me if like I went back to Waco, like just a week and a half early? You know, and I felt so terrible because it's not like I see them 24/7. But I was sitting there and I was like, it just didn't feel normal. Yeah. You know, like I had grown such a routine, and like I loved seeing the people I got to see. Like I loved just being in town. Like I don't even do anything. Yeah. People are like, well, what's your favorite thing to do in Waco? Sit at home with my dog in my apartment. I'm like, what do you mean? What's my favorite thing? Like, I'm not a tourist anymore. Like I got to do all that fun stuff my freshman year, and like this is just me relaxing. Yeah. And I was like, that's just what I love about it. You know, we get out of practice last week and I'm going to get torchies. And like 3, 4, 5 people are like, hey, good luck this weekend. Like, hey, great job. You know, like just random people. And I'm just smiling at them. And I'm like, thank you. Like, I'm like, you're so sweet. Because they don't have to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't. Like a lot of people wouldn't do that in other states or in other towns. And it was just so sweet. Like they were just so casual about it. Like, hey, great job. Yeah. Like, I was like, thanks. I was like, you're so kind.
Special.
You know, like I love that. Like it's just so home for me.
Well, we hope it always is because you've left your mark here, and it's great. And it's great for you to visit with us, and can't wait till May 5th to celebrate both of your birthdays.
That's awesome. That's great. I love birthday buddies.
And really hope you are playing deep into March this year.
Yes.
So thanks for being with us. Thanks for your contributions to Baylor basketball and Baylor athletics.
Yes, thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have you been looking for a new podcast to listen to? Are you interested in true crime, funny one-star reviews, or inspiring stories? What about the history of Waco or the famous people who have lived and worked here? All these and more are produced by Rogue Media Network. There are over 80 different shows, including this one, with more coming all the time. If there's a story to tell, Rogue Media Network is telling it. Watch on YouTube or listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, that's our Sick'em podcast this week. It's on to Kansas City. Baylor men play on Thursday. The women play on Friday to open Big 12 tournament play. It's going to be a lot of fun. Selection Sunday comes up for the men on this Sunday, for the women on Monday. So, boy, this is good time of year.
Fun time of year,
fun.
Busy time of year. So appreciate Caitlin in the middle of everything coming and joining us.
Happy spring break.
Happy spring break, Caitlin.
All right, we appreciate Caitlin Bickle being with us. For Katie Smith, I'm John Morris. That's this week's Sick'em podcast, powered by Rogue Media Network.
You've been listening to the Sick'em podcast, powered by Rogue Media Network. The Sick'em podcast is a production of Baylor Athletics.